welcome into Five Clubs on this Wednesday. Great to have you with us here on Golf Channel. You can, of course, listen on PGA Tour Radio. It's channel 92 on Sirius XM. And this program is always brought to you by every single day. Century Insurance, right by you. The things they invest in the game of golf, the relationship with the USGA, the first tee, as well as that sponsorship of the first event on the calendar year of the PGA Tour. And, of course, Golf Pride. Every player at every level trusts Golf Pride more than any grip in the world. Peter Millar, everything I'm fortunate to wear and have worn for the last 15 years, performance and style, they have been refining it for more than 2 decades. And of course, Pinehurst, every day is a great day to be at the cradle of American golf. We've got a big show for you on this Wednesday. The CEO of the United States Golf Association, of course, they've got their anchor site there at Pinehurst, and they are getting ready to go to another anchor site to begin their championship season, of which they run 13 significant championships around the country. Of course, Oakmont, they're outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So Mike Whan is going to join me. There are so many things to discuss with Mike as we embark on, as I mentioned, not only their championship season, but it's a time of the year where the conversations about all the things that are going on in the game of golf are heating up because people's minds are on the game. Certainly not hurt by what transpired last Sunday in Augusta, Georgia. It is the global golf renewal. It's about people watching golf, people thinking about playing golf, and the governance of golf is not easy. So what the USGA has to do on a daily basis, running championships, heck, that's the fun part, but trying to do all the things that they think are going to be for the betterment of the game of golf. And certainly one of the initiatives they're right in the middle of right now is the modifications in the golf ball rollback that will be instituted at the elite level in 2028 and then at the amateur level in 2030. And there is not overriding an overwhelming consensus right now. So where are we? Mark Darvin, the new chief executive of the R&A, was on this program a couple of weeks ago, and he was certainly optimistic. Where is Mike Whan's mind? We will gauge it when he joins us here the bottom of the hour. Jaime Diaz, who's a Five Clubs contributor and, of course, continues to work for Golf Digest, and you heard him and saw him this past week at the Masters Tournament on Golf Channel, giving his historical perspective on what transpired. And what transpired was something that is rarely seen, and that is the career Grand Slam. So let's gauge where Rory sits now, but let's also assess that Masters Tournament in his time. First of all, his first Masters was 1986 with Jack. It's a nice jumping off point for Jaime, his first Masters to see, which many people think will never be knocked off the pedestal as being #1 overall. When Rory was done on Sunday, he did a number of things. He did a number of one-on-one interviews, and then he finally settled into the press building and into the interview room in front of the international media. And Rory, before he fielded a question, asked a question. And his question was, what are we going to talk about next year? And that was a nice salvo because he knows that starting in 2015, his question of could he answer, and again, he was just coming off having won his 4th major championship in 2014. So as in August of 2014, it was plausible that he would go to Augusta National in the spring of 2015, and maybe he would complete the career Grand Slam. It didn't happen. Now he finished 4th, and you're saying, well, that's encouraging, even though he started the final round 10 shots behind Jordan Spieth. And then every year he kept going back. And not only was he not winning majors anywhere else, he certainly was not completing the career Grand Slam. And he had some years in which he wasn't a factor at all. And even his 2nd place finish in 2022 to Scottie Scheffler, he again was 10 shots back to start the final round. So what transpired on Sunday was not only exhausting and exhilarating, and it culminated with him doing something only five other men have done. The question he asked, the reality is that whether it's him or somebody else, well, they'll answer that question. Like, what are we going to talk about next year? Because where are we today? And it's not just golf, it's all of sports. Sports as an enterprise, whether it be in the United States or around the world, is a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. And I'm talking about athletes that are valued at $1 billion. I'm talking about franchises like the Boston Celtics, which is one of the great sporting franchises, not only here in the United States, but anywhere in the world, was just sold for in excess of $6 billion. When you have that type of value on individual athletes, on franchises, and then subsequently what networks pay to then put these products on the air, which is in the billions of dollars, you have intense competition. And when you have intense competition, you know what happens? It's very, very hard for anyone or any team to separate itself from the competition, whether it be history or in present day. In the National Football League, what we saw this past year was the Kansas City Chiefs trying to do something that only a few other teams have had the chance to do. Three-peat. They didn't do it. They didn't do it. So back to the drawing board they go, and now somebody else, who knows, maybe it's in a couple of years, maybe it's 10 years, maybe it's 50 years. Somebody will have a chance to three-peat. Look at Major League Baseball. 8 of the last 10 champions have been different franchises. The National Basketball Association, in the last 10 years, 7 different franchises have won the NBA title. My point is, getting away and separating yourself from everybody else is harder than it's ever been. Specialization, optimization. The individual athlete thinks about their craft and their body, which is their temple, more now than they ever have. That image of Lenny Dawson at halftime of an NFL football game, drinking a 7-Up, smoking a cigarette, those days are long gone. These athletes get in hyperbaric chambers just to protect themselves so they can do what they do the next day to the best of their ability. So when we get somebody or something that allows themselves to just incrementally get away from their competition, whether you're rooting for them or whether you're rooting against them, you watch. Because the last thing that any sport, whether it be the NHL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, the National Football League needs is indifference. We want you to lean in to what's going on. So here is the answer to Rory's question. Because if he, and when I say he, and I'm not talking about July, and I'm not talking about the Open Championship, I'm just talking about a month from now. This is somebody who went 39 major championship starts without winning one, after winning 4 of his first 25. So I'm trying to not get to, whether it be Oakmont or whether it be to Royal Portrush. Rory McIlroy is only 4 rounds away from doing something which, again, is separation from everybody else in this respect, and that is winning the first 2. History. The history of players in golf since the modern slam, and we didn't even know it was a modern slam, and really until well after Augusta National and the Augusta National Invitation started in 1934. But let's just play the game, shall we? In 1941, Craig Wood won the first 2 major championships. He won the US Open and he won the Masters tournament. Well, unfortunately, he could not go and play in the next major championship, the Open Championship, because there was a little thing called World War II that was going on. So that didn't happen. So let's go forward to 1949, and it was Sam Snead. And that year, it happened to be the Masters and the PGA, and the PGA was played in match play in that particular year, and he won the first 2. So he went to the US Open with a chance to win the first 3. He lost by a shot to Kerry Middlecoff. And you're thinking, well, that is heartbreak because he'd already had heartbreak in the US Open. But did we really know that he was maybe that close to winning the first 3 legs of what was a Grand Slam? Again, the modesty of the dialogue was just that. It was modest. So just go forward 2 years to 1951, and it was Ben Hogan who won the first 2 majors of that particular year. He didn't even play in the other 2. So 1953, here he is, does it again. And he actually went to the Open Championship for his one-off at Carnoustie. And you know what? He won it, but he didn't even play in the PGA because it overlapped with the Open Championship. So here we go all the way to 1972, and it's Jack who does it. First 2, goes to the Open Championship, loses by a shot to Trevino. And from 1972, we didn't get it again for another 28 years, and it was Tiger, or pardon me, it was 2002, it was 30 years, and it was Tiger in 2002. And he went to Muirfield, having won the first 2 majors. And he shot 81 in the 3rd round in a gale, and I was there, and I walked every step with my dad. Actually, let me amend that. My dad said after 9 holes, I'm going to get a pint of Guinness, enjoy the back nine. That's not fun. And then we got it one more time in 2015. It was Jordan Spieth. He won the first two, and it was a magic carpet ride. And he went to the old course, and he made the birdie on 16. You're going, oh, my God, he's going to do it. Then he bogeyed 17, didn't birdie 18, and he missed the playoff by a shot. But see, I know you remember that because he separated himself, because he allowed himself to be on the doorstep of the next step. So for Rory McIlroy, that next step is right here at Quail Hollow in Charlotte, North Carolina. And oh, by the way, he's come here 4 times and won it. It's his happiest of haunts. And if he truly is liberated from the burden of what he's tried to accomplish over the last decade, and he is in full flight, and you're thinking that all that anxiety and all this nervousness of trying to cross the line, not just to win a major, but to complete the career Grand Slam, has been dissipated, and he does, well, then we go to Oakmont and you're going, okay. So Rory, the answer to the question is that either you or somebody else will answer it, because what you guys do is why we watch. It's the rarest of feats, and you just accomplished one of them. So with that, why don't we take a look at Club 5? We update it every week. It's kind of our own little heat index of who is the hottest 5 players. And again, it's our own kind of wonky algorithm. So let's take a look at this very quickly. And even though he has not won a golf tournament this year, heck, he might win this week at the Heritage is Colin Morikawa. He's got 2 seconds. His worst result all year is a tie for 17th. So how could you not have him among the 5 best players right now, even though he's in his own little mini winless drought? At number 4, and you can value the live events all you want or not at all. The fact is Bryson DeChambeau didn't have his best stuff, and still he was in the last group of the Masters on Sunday. And for the last 5 major championships, he's got a win, he's got a second. His worst result is a tie for 6th at the PGA a couple of years ago at Oak Hill. At number 3 is Ludwig Åberg. Yes, he had a couple of missed cuts this year, but he won the Genesis. He is somebody who, if he doesn't 3-putt 17, and I know what happened on 18, he is built for the big stage. He is at number 3. At number 2, Scottie Scheffler, he's done everything but win. He's got a second, he's got a third, he's got a fourth. He is always in the top 25 at the very worst, and he is defending this week at the Heritage. And number 1, we've just discussed him. He's off to one of the true heaters. He is where Scottie Scheffler was when Scottie left the Masters last year. 3 wins, including the Masters and a Players and a Signature Series event. Rory's never won more than 4 events in a year. He's got 3, and they're all monstrous. And of course, Sunday was his own Rubicon that he crossed. That is your Club 5 on a Wednesday, and next week we will reveal what at the end of the year the Club 5 winner is going to be the recipient of. You think the green jacket has value. Wait till next Wednesday. Oh my. All right, we're going to take a break here. When we continue, the great historian, 5 Clubs contributor, writes such wonderful work still for Golf Digest. You saw his perspective on Golf Channel on Live From during their Masters coverage. Jaime Diaz coming up next, and then bottom of the hour, the CEO of the USGA, Mike Whan. Great to have you with us on a Wednesday edition of 5 Clubs here on Golf Channel and also on PGA Tour Radio, Channel 92 on Sirius XM. We're back with you right after this. Back in on a Wednesday, it is 5 Clubs on Golf Channel. Please listen as well. Channel 92 on Sirius XM. It is PGA Tour Radio. This segment is brought to you by Golf Pride. The new Align Max grips, they're the ones I've got on my clubs. If you've not tried them, do so. Any of their grips, including the guy who just won the Masters, he has trusted Golf Pride, as has every elite player and every player at every level, more than any other grip in the world. All right, joining me now from his home just outside of Pinehurst, which again, the cradle of American golf. I know he loves being over there, but I know he loves being at majors because history is made. Jaime, you gave your perspective not only throughout the week, but in the aftermath of what transpired on Sunday night. It's good to see you. Let me start with this. If Rory had gone from 4 majors to 5, and it was not the career Grand Slam, it was somewhere else, and let's say it was 5 years ago, yes, incrementally he would have moved historically from where he was formerly up, but it would have been modest. How significant do you think his movement is going from 4 to 5, considering the length of time and the fact that it included the career Grand Slam?
Yeah, it would have been, it's drastically. And it would have been, as you say, probably, I think 29 guys had 4 majors or better. I think if Rory had gotten his 5th, he would have moved up, into maybe the low 20s, mid 20s perhaps, if it had not been the Masters and had not been the Grand Slam. But with the Grand Slam, I mean, it's pretty dramatic, and it's really debatable. I mean, it could be anywhere from like 17th all the way to 12th if you want to argue, because it's so close. But I think the Grand Slam is just so important. And if you look at the top 3 players all time, I think you'd have to, probably most people would say Jack, Tiger, and Hogan. They all won the Grand Slam. Tiger and Jack won it 3 times each, actually, within their own record. And, you had Sarazen and you had Player. Sarazen probably not in the top 10, but I think Rory, with the accumulative, 29 victories on the PGA Tour and 19 on the European Tour and 2 players, you've got to give him the nod just on the record alone. I think now, and it's hard to say it, but I think honestly, if Rory stopped playing tomorrow, I think I'd rank him ahead of Seve and Faldo at number with 6, and Mickelson as well. The hard one to pass would be, to me, Byron Nelson, who's kind of the anomaly with 5 majors, but he was such an all-time great, and his level was so high, perhaps the highest ever in some ways, with the 11th straight and the 18 wins in 1945. But again, Rory is really formidable now with that Grand Slam. So the thing about it is, sentimentally, you kind of favor the guys who are retired and in the past. At least I do. And Rory's got way more to play, and perhaps even better golf. Who knows? He might be in that period where he's actually put it all together and can relax and really go on a run.
Jaime, the gap in time in the building of external pressure is something we hadn't seen before. And then you couple that with 2022, 2023, and 2024 in different majors, 2 U.S. Opens, and then the Open Championship, but specifically the Open Championship, the Old Course, which it goes there every 5 years. You may or may not have the chance to add that one that is so particularly special. Jack did it, certainly Tiger did it. Does the gap in some way and the anguish and heartbreak help him because he had to overcome certain things, that there is a level of resiliency that others maybe didn't have to stomach and overcome, that he gets extra credit for that?
I think it is additive. I think it definitely gets extra credit because Rory was missing that element. I think if you were kind of measuring him against the all-time greats, he was not quite the gritty competitor. And we're talking at the very highest level.
Yes.
I mean, he won certainly a lot, but comparing him to those all-time greats, it was the element perhaps that he lacked. And so because he had the heartbreak, he had to dig deeper than ever, maybe deeper than many have ever had to dig, because there was so much exposure to, the way that he played and how he had lost and the mistakes he had made and the pressure and the expectation was on him, that I think, honestly, he just jumped exponentially by doing what he did at the Masters, because he carried the whole burden and overcame it and showed the one element that perhaps he was missing in people's mind and actually excelled at it. I mean, there was just so much adversity in that round and so much coming back. And I'm sure, after the first 2 holes, I mean, the first hole, he misses the bunker by 6 inches and causes a double where he would have been in a, wedge position and maybe make birdie. He doesn't birdie 2 because he barely goes into the bunker on 2. And now he's lost the lead, and Bryson's right there, sort of his, nemesis. And all the memories are flooding back from Pinehurst. I'm sure he had to deal with all that. And yet, and I can't imagine many more stressful early round, 4th round situations than that. And he comes back, he birdies 3. As he said, that was the most important shot he hit, was the little second shot on 3. It got him back on the train. And he just handled it so well from there, even though he made even more mistakes. Because, he's human, and he's not really quite the finished, product like Tiger or Jack down the stretch. But it was such a growth period and such a change of perception for me that what he did just, I think, put him in a different place historically, not just because of the Grand Slam, but because he showed he was way more complete mentally And obviously, as we'll talk about, physically, he had added some things to his game the last couple of years.
Yeah, let's get to just that. You mentioned how complete, and you and I have talked about him, quite a bit over the last 5-6 years. We associate him with somebody who can, to be analogous to other sports. When he gets to the rail and he gets clean air, it's over. But can he navigate? And as a pitcher, yeah, he could overpower people, but where's the off-speed stuff? Where's the nuance? What have you seen from him over the last couple of years, and then specifically where he's won this year and how he's won this year that has shown an ability to refine himself, to lean on other things that were not necessarily assets that he was in possession of before that makes him more complete? What is it?
Well, I think he was onto this a couple of years ago where he kind of acknowledged it. I thought it was important that he said, I played with Scotty and I like what Scotty does and I need more of that, and I think the real turning point was Pinehurst. I mean, that could have crushed him. And instead of getting bitter, he got better. He needed to get better. And I think he knew it. He took it on. He embraced it as he, worked with Bob Roteller's like, I want to put my head, on the chopping block and, and take all of it and handle it. And if he didn't do it, still sort of feel like, well, that's what golf's about. And I'm getting to be a better player. I don't think losing the Masters would have crushed him because of that. I think he had gotten a new perspective that said this is an incremental game and you get better and you don't always win, but you got to take the positives and what you learned. And he's still a young 35. He's going to be 36. So there's still a future. I really believe he didn't look at anything as the end. He looked at it as a new beginning. And I think he's kind of entering a second prime. And, specifically, I think changing speeds with his irons is really an important thing. Playing the softer ball, and which probably costs him a couple of yards, but it gains him touch and feel and accuracy and distance control and flighting the ball differently and having to. And you saw that at the Players when he, came down in the playoff in 17, that beautiful 9-iron, just to that little hole. Is an easy hole, but not under that kind of pressure. And he hit the shot he needed to, especially after Spahn put it in the water. So, Rory, I think his short game has improved. It's always been the mistakes, the soft bogeys that have hurt Rory. He still made some at the Masters, obviously. 13 was, glaring. 18 was glaring. So he's not a finished product, but he's certainly, by being able to, rebound the way he did and hit those incredible shots like on 7 and 17, on 15. So that negated it. Now, you can't live on those all the time, and I think he knows that. But I think he's on the right track. The putting with Brad Faxon, the working with Rotella, he is actually in a second prime, so to speak, I believe. Johnny Miller talked about this, about the all-time greats. Jack kind of had it in the mid-70s. Hogan had it probably after the accident because he felt he was better in the late 40s than he was before. There's others who, Johnny Miller himself thought that he had a second prime. It was a more modest one, but it was very meaningful to him because he completely lost his game and found it again. Gary Player probably in the late 70s, certainly 78 at the Masters. That was an epic victory at a very old age. So I think Rory knows that he has that capacity because physically he's so great. And he, I said this before, and it probably didn't resonate, but I think that the fact that he still loves the game just gives him this motivation and this incentive to really make the most of the gift that he's got. And I think now he's really fulfilled because it was all worth it. All the pain was worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that there's no doubt that his love of not just competitive golf, but what golf gives him. You have to love golf to choose to go to the other side of the world with some friends at the end of the year to explore golf courses and to go see places you hadn't seen before, because it is your job. And a lot of elite players, you ask them, have you played here, or there? They go, no. Like, why would I go to some place that's like my work environment when I don't have to? I agree with you. I think his affection for golf is maybe at an all-time high. So let's get to this Masters. I mentioned your first Masters covering it was 1986. So it's not a fair fight, really. That one's always going to be hard to knock off the pedestal. But all things considered, where does this one rank in terms of Masters for all of the totality of all the elements and the way it unfolded? Let's say he wins by 4. Maybe it wouldn't be as high, but because of what appeared to be lost and then found again, I think it goes to a different place. Where do you rank it?
Well, I think it's about criteria, Gary. If it's all level of play, I wouldn't put this one in the elite category. But I think that's the least important of the main criteria, which I would say is popularity. The satisfaction of the theater of it, the drama. That it within the round that was so important, and then the significance historically, and obviously the Grand Slam, made it really significant. But I'd say obviously '86 Jack, 1997 Tiger, because it was just this new wave obviously coming onto the game, this paradigm shift. Tiger was going to be the man to win by 12. 2019 Tiger, because that was so similar to Jack in terms of the nostalgia and the comeback and all the just the incredible human emotion about that one. And then I would put this one fourth. I would put, well, if I'm counting significance of not significance, but if I'm counting quality of play, I'd put 75 in there with Jack,
yes,
and Miller and Weiskopf coming down the stretch. But I didn't do that the other night because I didn't count quality of play. And as I think about it, I think it's important. But then I'd put Rory fifth, 2025 Masters, for all the reasons we spoke about. And obviously, he's such a popular figure. The significance was really high. And you could maybe rank this one tops in drama as far as the ups and downs and the roller coaster.
Yeah, it'd be hard drama-wise with who was behind Jack, who was trying to maybe, obviously including Norman and including Tom Kite. 86 is going to be very, very hard. You're right. If we include the quality of play as being an equal element to determining where you're going to rank it, there was a lot of calamity. There was a lot of failing. But I think, Jaime, part of that was nobody else has tried to do this there. And I've said this respectfully about Sarazen. It wasn't. Nobody has had to try to do this. So I kind of move it up a little bit. But again, you're talking about knocking up against 97, which ushered in an era that we had never seen before. And ironically, he plays with Faldo day one. He plays with Azinger day two. He played with Montgomery day three. It was almost like he told all of them to their face, I'm the future and you're not in it, yeah. Which to me was powerful. So that's why 97 is there. All right, last thing for now. If he goes to Quail, which again, it's 4 rounds away. He's had great success there. There's no reason to think he won't be liberated by what just happened. Does Oakmont feel really, really big?
Well, sure it does. I think they're all big now because, he's in that beautiful sweet spot where he's conquered something within himself, and he now has a real chance to just play with freedom, which he's always done so well. When Rory's in full flight, everybody says, and, even with Scotty there, I was asked on Live From who has the most weapons. I'm not who has the most weapons, but at the top of their game at full flight, who's better? And I still said Scotty because I was giving, a lot of weight to just being so all around that he could, dig deep late in a round perhaps and have more chances to make a run because Rory plays kind of full out all the time. But then having watched Rory, just start that round, the third round so beautifully with that, excuse me, I'm trying to remember now. He started the round, I guess the first round, with this explosion of,
His
hitting
first
it.
14 holes were flawless.
315, 350 all the time, straight. That's just too big an advantage to ignore. And so if he has that mindset, I'm not saying he's going to do that every time, but
sure.
If he's more free to access that part of himself, I think these majors could start falling at a obviously much greater rate than once every 11 years. 2 or 3 more, and he's really going to be in the pantheon if he can capitalize. So, sure, these are great, and who knows? I mean, we talk Grand Slam within a year. I mean, Jack always wanted to win that Masters. It was so important to him later in his career, especially because the calendar Grand Slam was, that was the sort of the ultimate. And he hadn't, he would be. See, he's going to Quail where he's won so often and done so well. I mean, it does set up pretty darn well for him.
It does. Jaime, thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you here in Charlotte in just a couple weeks' time. Jaime Diaz, of course, contributor to Golf Digest, Golf Channel, and right here at Five Clubs. And we continue. The CEO of the USGA, Mike Whan, get his thoughts on a number of items because their championship season is upon them. He joins us right here on Five Clubs right after this. Back in on Five Clubs on Golf Channel. You can also listen on SiriusXM Channel 92, PGA Tour Radio. This segment brought to you by Peter Millar. For over 2 decades, performance and style, they've been refining it. I've been lucky to be a proud ambassador for 15 years. And speaking of which, our partnership, matched by the partnership with the United States Golf Association. They have one as well with Peter Millar. Joining me now, the CEO from the great state of New Jersey, Mike Whan. Mike, it's not 74 and sunny like it was in Augusta all week last week, but it's still New Jersey. You're happy, right?
Back into winter. When I left Georgia, I'm the only guy who drives to the Masters and drives back as a wife and a dog that won't fly. So, yeah, I watched the temperature drop as I went through 8 states on the way home on Monday.
You know what it's like to get an exhilarating, scintillating major championship. You get many of them. Of course, Pinehurst last year, and Rory left Pinehurst heartbroken. It shows the redemptive powers of the human spirit, and of course, specifically in the game of golf. You were there. Before we dive into some things, just your thoughts about what we witnessed?
Yeah, amazing. I've said this before, Gary. Maybe I shouldn't have shared this publicly, but when Bryson blasted out of the bunker to a few feet, I realized in an instant that he was going to win and Rory was going to lose. And you know this from the TV business. I was going to have 2 minutes and 2 seconds in between him making that putt, us going to commercial, and coming back to give the trophies and the medals away. So I ran down to the champions locker room just to talk to Rory for a minute and a half. And I'll never forget, kind of walking there. If I'm being honest with you, I actually ran into the full swing group that was running the same hallway. We were both thinking the same thing. And so I told the full swing group to just sit there for a second while I had a chance to say something to Rory before I went up and celebrated Bryson's win. And so having remembered that moment pretty vividly, seeing him, drop to his knees and feel that moment in Augusta, just feels like the golfing gods taketh and then they give it right back. And it was a great moment. If I was being honest with you, I was at Augusta and I went looking for Rosie. I wanted to see Justin Rose for a minute because I know that moment everybody's running to the champion. Wasn't able to get there via the crowds, but what an incredible stage! What an incredible exhibition for the game we witnessed, and I'm just so proud of our partners at Augusta and the athletes that really gave us that show.
Well said. Before we get to something I know everybody wants to hear your thoughts on, and you're certainly willing to share them with respect to the golf, I want to ask you about 2 other things first. The U.S. Development Program, this is something I know that this has been a big priority of yours. Launched in 23. Give everybody, because I met a few of these young people at your annual meeting less than 2 months ago, wildly impressive. How do you do an assessment of the progress that program is making just a couple years in?
It's interesting, Gary. I imagine most of your viewers know this, but when I was commissioner for 12 seasons at the LPGA, it struck me pretty early on that every woman on that tour, and I mean every woman on that tour, came out of a country program unless she was an American, where there wasn't a country program. And on these country programs, they learn how to eat, stretch, train, work with a caddy, get into a D1 school, travel, manage their own financial accounts, really become a mature and potentially professional athlete. And that just wasn't happening for the Americans. And numerous times I tried to work with different stakeholders to kind of launch something on this front. But when I got hired by the USGA, I remember saying to the board, don't hire me if you're not ready to launch the United States National Development Program, because the minute you hire me, we're going to start working on it. It's a disadvantage right now. I know that's hard to believe, but if you're a 13 or 14-year-old superstar in America, you're at a slight disadvantage versus almost any other country in the world, including Canada, Mexico, Korea, Sweden, Japan, Thailand. Every other golfing country has a national program. In fact, every American Olympic sport has a national development program except golf. And we changed all that about 18 months ago. So yes, we have about 500 kids we keep on the radar. About 100 of those 500 are getting financial support from us, because one of the difficulties in this game is if you're 13 and you're a superstar, the cost to raise a professional golfer is challenging. We lose some of the greatness of the game pretty early on because of that. We can address that. But we bring these kids together in camps. We just had a camp, last week down in Houston, in a friendly match versus Canada. These kids come together and they learn from each other probably as much as they learn from us. And what's really kind of cool, Gary, and I'd be, if I was being honest with you, was something we didn't anticipate when we started, is the amount of individuals who are supporting this. Last year, I think a little over 2,000 individuals wrote a check to the United States National Development Program to help us with the funding of this important program. And as I said to the board when we started, vote no if you don't know if you'll be doing this 80 years from now. Vote yes if we're making an 80-year decision, not an 8-year or an 8-month decision. So back to your original question, I don't really care where we are in 1 year or 2 years. I care where we're going to be in a decade. And so I really challenge my team sometimes to do the right thing, even if the right thing doesn't create some sort of rate of return, because what we're really doing is building athletes, and we're helping kids achieve their dreams, whatever those dreams are. Some cases it's professional, some cases it's just D1 school, some cases it's to become an LPGA or PGA professional. But whatever that is, let's help America's greatest elite youth golfers achieve the highest point that they want to and can. And other countries have been doing that for, if I'm being honest with you, for decades. So we got a little bit of catching up to do, but I promise you we'll catch up. And when we do, American greatness in the game will be secured long term.
All right, Mike, I want to remind you of a Q&A. I'm sure you remember it. It was recent with Max Adler of Golf Digest. And it was about the golf ball. And you said regarding the ball that both the Tour and the PGA of America said if you're going to limit distance, have the guts to make it a rule for everyone. And if it was their choice, they wouldn't go along. They have made it clear that they have a dissenting opinion on this. The R&A, obviously Fred Ridley, there is no gray area. There is unequivocal support for what you guys are doing from Augusta National. Do you feel like that the PGA Tour or the PGA of America, are you disappointed, let down, feel betrayed by doing what they asked you to do, and now they sit here dissenting from what you've done?
I think the good news, Gary, is, and I'm not saying this to deflect your comment, because it's been a long process. As you know, I might have been born with a few skills, but patience wasn't one of them. So this process has required me to go slow, listen, take input, quite frankly, change direction a number of times based on the input of others. But more recently, and I would say, since really the Players' Championship and as recently as last week at Augusta, we've had really good, what I would consider collaborative, constructive industry partner gatherings talking about the implementation and what we need to do between now and 2028 and 2030. So, while I feel comfortable in the process in terms of listening to the input, getting here, if I was critiquing myself, I probably could have done better since the decision to really involve the stakeholders in the implementation process and make sure we're listening to the PGA America and their concerns about how we get from here to there, and listening to the PGA Tour and their players as they're doing different testing. Obviously, it's pretty early in the process, and we've been a part of governance a long time, and we understand how prototypes lead to R&D, which lead to future technology. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but I'm encouraged. I would say that's the first time I've used the word encouraged in a while in this process. I'm encouraged by the collaboration that's happening right now and the constructive input to help us get to a point that makes sure that the game stays unified, despite a admittedly tough decision that's really the right decision for the game long term, regardless of how people feel today or tomorrow or next week. It's pretty hard to argue 30 years from now that we should be doing something now that we can all see coming.
With respect to the data, Mark Darbin, who I had on the program a couple of weeks ago, he said basically it's been 40 yards in 40 years. Does the data show what the future looks like? Is it 40 more yards in 40 years? Do you agree with his assessment that it's been 40 yards in 40 years, meaning that that's how much the gains have been over the last 4 decades?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously I agree with his assessment because those are the facts. I mean, the fact of the matter is the game is gaining about a yard a year. And what's interesting about a yard a year is, who pays attention to a yard a year? Like if you look at this thing over a 3-year, 5-year, even a 10-year period, it's kind of like beach recession. You sort of don't pay attention to it. But when you look at this thing over 20 and 40-year time frames, it becomes a little more challenging when you think about the elite level distance of the game increasing at 40 yards a year. The probably more concerning part is today, the way we test golf balls, we aren't really affecting that kind of ball speed. We're testing it, at 176, and you tell me, you watched a tournament last week on TV. How many guys did you see in those final groups hitting a ball speed of 176? We're living in the low 190s right now, so we're really not even evaluating ball speeds and distance in the way it's being played today, because the last time we updated this was 2004. As I've always said, yes, we're getting longer, and we've been getting longer for a long time. The reality of it is the future of this game is longer than today. And if you don't believe me, come to the U.S. Amateur at the Olympic Club with me this year. Come to the Walker Cup at Cyprus, and let me show you ball speeds of tomorrow's elite game. They're playing the game. It's funny, when Rory first came on the map, he started playing the game at the high 180s, and everyone said, well, they'll never be able to play the game at that level. And of course he does. And now these kids coming out of school play them in the low 190s, and everyone thinks they're going to dial it back, but they don't have to, and they don't. So it's the reality of it is, yeah, the game is long. It's much longer than it's been. The future is clearly longer than the present. I mean, they're just playing at greater ball speeds, and we're really not doing anything, in fairness, currently to reflect those kind of ball speeds in the standards that we have in place for the game.
You use the word encouraged. So are you encouraged, or are you kind of mildly confident that you will get consensus, that we will not be in a place where three major championships are playing one ball and maybe a tour and another major playing a different ball? And we're still several years off, but are you encouraged or mildly confident that we're going to get there?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
I think the good news is when you bring together the major stakeholders in the game, I think we all realize that yet another disruptive battle is not good for the game. It's not good for the tours. It's not great for college. It's certainly not even great for the amateurs who want to follow the game. So, we all have the same goal, which is let's do the right thing by the game. Let's make sure the game is better 30 years from now than it even is today. It doesn't mean we all have to agree on the exact implementation steps. I mean, that's why we're in the position we're in. It's why the RNA and the USGA doesn't have ball contracts, don't have members that are tied to the financial impact of change. So that's why we were put in this position. And I don't think it's always a fun position, but the reality is you got to take this position serious. But yes, I'm encouraged by the fact that the stakeholders of the game agree that we're going to have to work through this, and we're going to have to do this together. And we've started a pretty significant process in doing that. Like I said, there was a pretty long and arduous process to get to a decision. Again, not everybody likes the decision because everybody wanted the decision to be their exact decision. But I can tell you with 40 different stakeholders, there wasn't 40 common thoughts. But yes, I'm encouraged. I'm encouraged by the current collaboration, and I believe that we'll be fine and we'll work through it. It won't be easy, and we'll have a few bumps along the way, but we'll be doing the right thing for the game long term, and we'll figure out a way to do that that isn't disruptive for the game, either for the short or long term.
Well, we need more time. I hope we get it maybe at Oakmont when we're out there. It was good seeing you walking up the first fairway at Augusta National the other day. Thank you for the time again. There's never enough of it, and I look forward to seeing you very soon.
Thank you, Gary. Good to have you back on, and more importantly, thanks for the name of your show.
You got it. The homage to the original 5 clubs. Here's Mike Whan, the CEO of the USGA. Quick break. When we come back, our favorite segment, Dogs of the Week, coming up. We end the week with God's creatures. Dogs of the week, send them in if you have a dog that has any relationship with the game of golf. Dogs at 5clubsgolf.com. Let's take a look at our dogs this week, and we will start with Ginger. Ginger is a 13-year-old Maltipoo from Pensacola, Florida, Perdue Bay Golf Club. Loves to ride on the golf cart. You can tell right there. How about Phil Webb's dogs? This is Sophie and Sully. That is Old Bold Resort and Golf in Roaring Gap, North Carolina, just off the 15th green. That is a glorious spot up there in the mountains of North Carolina. Next, that is Pepper. That is Pat Berta's dog. Pepper's a 10-year-old Labrador mix. Checking out some of the best golf courses in California, from PJ West to Spanish Bay to Pebble Beach. Great to feature Pepper. How about Gracie? This is Chris Calladini's dog, a 2.5-year-old English Golden Retriever. Gracie is at Pacific Grove Golf Links, right there on the card at Monterey Pines Golf Club. 2 great public golf courses. That is Palmer Ace Love. That is John Love's dog. Palmer is a golden doodle, loves the golf course at Magnolia Point in Green Cove Springs, Florida. Looks like she can drive. She's got her right paw on the steering wheel like, I got this. All right, let's get our picks in before we're done here. But first, let's look at the standings. Look at Gil Hance. Hey, Gil, get back on the bulldozer and bill a hole, please. He is rocketed to the front of the line. He picked Rory, got the win, Emma as well. Some people are picking winners. I haven't, nor is Jay Billis or Brendan DeYoung. Gil, he has gone with chalk virtually every week, and he's running out of chalk because Scotty Scheffler, this is the 4th time he's picked him. You can only pick him 5 all year. I'm going with Ludwig as his Jay Billis, Justin Thomas for Johnson Wagner, Corey Connors for Emma, Colin Morikawa for Brendan, and Daniel Berger for Taylor Zarzour. Those are your picks for the RBC Heritage. Next week, we'll be joined by Cole Hammer. It's a pro's life, Emma Carpenter as well, and Rob Collins on a great documentary on one of his golf courses. Have a great rest of your week from all of us here at 5 Clubs.